Hi there, Kimmer here. I'd like to quickly take a look at this program. It's already done. We're going to run it in just a minute, but I need you to see what it does. Notice that I have two variables declared for first initial and last initial, both being characters, assuming the first name initial and last name initial, and then an integer for favorite number. You'll also notice that I have three input statements, or three prompts, if you will. Enter your favorite number. So it takes that in first, then it asks for your first initial, and then it asks for your last initial. Then the last printf line is your initials are, and notice I have a %C and %C, and your favorite number is %D. Notice then I have first initial, last initial, and favorite number. So it looks pretty straightforward. However, watch what happens when I run it. Okay, let's move this over here so you can see it. And notice then it asks us for our favorite number, so I'm going to go ahead and put in a 22. And it does ask to enter in the first initial, but you'll notice that it didn't give me a chance to put anything in. Now it's blinking, waiting for our last initial, so let's go ahead and put in our last initial. Notice it says your initials are, and then it goes to a new line. And then it says and M, so it took the M for the last initial. And your favorite number is 22. So it got my number there. But one thing I want to point out, other than at the beginning, and that's it, there are no \n's. But you'll notice right after the word are, meaning right where the first %C is for first initial, it went to a new line. So let's talk about that. What's happening is known as a keyboard buffer issue. Sometimes it's called a input stream issue, but here I like to call it a keyboard buffer, and simply because when you type things into a keyboard, they go into this area, a holding area, if you will, called a buffer. So if we go ahead and take a look at our program that we did, right? Here's our program, here is our output. Now, the very first thing that we did was declare some variables. And now remember, when you declare variables in memory, memory addresses are allocated for those variables. So we have first initial, last initial, and favorite num that are all allocated to some arbitrary address locations of A1, A2, and A3. So when we first do the printf, it prints out enter your favorite number. Now, it sits there because the scanf is waiting for you to type in an integer. Okay, so when we type in the 22, what happens, you have this keyboard buffer area. And then this 22 and the enter key that I happen to press. Now think about that. I pressed 2, 2, enter. So that's what it looks like in the keyboard buffer. So what we're doing now is we're telling it, the scanf, to go to the keyboard buffer, grab an integer, %D, decimal integer, and put it into favorite num, the address of favorite number, in other words, A3. So it does. So now you'll notice when it gets down to the next printf, it prints it, enter your first initial. But take a look at our keyboard buffer real quick here. Because it took the 22 out, put it into favorite number, because that's what we told the scanf to do. So now it goes to the next line, and we're telling the scanf, hey, go check that keyboard buffer and grab a character. %C means character. So did you notice that the enter key is sitting in there? And guess what the enter key is? Oh, it's a character. Remember, pretty much anything on the keyboard is a character. So the enter key is just kind of left over, if you will, sitting there, and we're telling it to go into first initial. So the enter key goes into first initial. Then it continues to enter your last initial. Notice the keyboard buffer is empty. So I can go ahead and type in an M, and then I hit enter. So the scanf, in this case, will go take the M, put it into last initial, but notice the enter key is still sitting in there. Okay, So let's take a look at that last printf now that we have values in all of our variables. The first %C is asking for first initial. And if we look at first initial in memory, what do we see? Oh, we see the enter key. So look at the output at the bottom of the screen. Your initials are, see the green arrow there? Notice, instead of printing anything, it goes to a new line. And then it finishes with M as the last initial, and favorite number is 22. So, now what do we got to do to fix it? Here's the thing. The very first scanf, remember, saw the enter key sitting in that keyboard buffer. What we can do is we can tell the scanf, hey, there might be an enter key there. \n is the new line character, but for input, it's recognized as the enter key. So if we put \n here, you will notice now it's going to stop for our first initial. Let's go ahead and run that and see what happens. Again, favorite number 22. Notice it stops on my first initial. So this time I'm going to put in a K. Uh-oh, what happened? Notice it didn't stop at my last initial. Any clue why? Darn enter key again. When I put in the K, I had to hit enter. So the scanf took the K and put it into my first initial. But this time, when we told the scanf to go get another character, the enter key was there. Notice then it hit enter and went down to the new line in between where that %C should have been. So, how do we fix that? Same way we fixed the other one. We're going to tell it that there might be an enter key in here. Now, if there's not an enter key and you tell the scanf that there might be, he'll just ignore you, and he'll go ahead and grab the next character. So let me show you this run one more time. Favorite number, 22. First initial, K. Last initial, M. Your initials are K and M, and your favorite number is 22. Now you know how to fix the keyboard buffer issue. It's not a problem with any kind of numeric data. It's only a problem when you're taking in characters. So if you're ever using a scanf that takes in characters, just get in the habit of putting the \n there. Now, if you've already Googled this and looked around, there's probably a couple more. Actually, I know there are a couple more ways to handle this. You can use a function called flush, and you could also use another function called getchar. Getchar is probably the next best thing to use. The flush is sometimes can cause undefined issues, so I technically don't use it in these scenarios here. Just understanding when you're taking in a character that the enter key is a character. Okay, so I hope this helps you fix any issues that you might have. Talk soon.